My mom is getting older and wants to create her will. She is still capable for the most part, and also has a lawyer, but she lives with us anyway, so I help her with many things including this. I have 2 teenagers. My brother has a teenage daughter with his wife of 20 years. However, they briefly separated a decade ago, and he has a son, Ashton, who is a tween, from a one-night stand. They have also had a visitation schedule, and we, the extended family, have known him since he was a preschooler. But as of a year ago, he is living with my brother and wife full-time, as his mother passed away, and is now more integrated into our family. My mom accepts his son as her grandson, as do the rest of us. My mom wants to leave a small property she owns to be split among the grandkids. The assumption is that when the time comes they will sell it and split the proceeds, since it is not sentimental or convenient to share ownership of. Ashton is the sole beneficiary of his mother's death and also the sole beneficiary of his very elderly but very well-off maternal grandparents. The funds from his mother alone are considerably more than the property my mom owns. So my mother allocated him a token gift, but did not think it made sense for him to be cut in equally to the other 3. It has nothing to do with him being born outside of the marriage or anything like that. My brother found out and demanded that his son be cut in equally to the property, not really because of the money. He knows, as well as we do, that Ashton does not need it, and more because of what it meant symbolically for Ashton to not be included. My mom repeated that it did not make practical sense, but said if I agreed, she was willing to split it 4 ways instead. But I said no. I agree with her that it is illogical. Let's say the property is worth $200,000 when my mom passes away. Split 4 ways, that is $50,000 each. Split 3 ways, that is $67,000 each. If we were talking about $200, I would understand, but I cannot justify taking $17,000 from each of my kids' futures for a symbolic gesture. Obviously, the exact amount will depend on the market. $200,000 is just a reference point in current value. I told my brother that I did not think it was fair to my kids. He said I was being mercenary. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your mother wants to do what she can to give all of her grandchildren a head start in life. However, the needs of the youngest child are not the same as those of the older 3, and your mother is considering that. That said, perhaps your mother could leave a particularly sentimental item and a letter to the youngest child that expresses her love for him and the reason behind what she did. It will never be equal when one child receives so much more than the other 3. Your brother needs to butt out. Inheritances fully fund his kid's future. He's just being greedy. Unfortunately, he found out because he was setting things up for an unnecessary rift between his son and the rest of the family. You are the idiot. He is her grandson. Why are you all acting like he's some outsider? Let me put it this way. You go out to eat, and when the waiter sets down your food, he says, unprompted, "I didn't spit in your food." You're gonna be a little suspicious, right? Because you didn't expect him to spit in your food. There's no reason for him to tell you he didn't explicitly. So why did he say it? OP, why do you feel the need to specify that this nephew is being treated like he's family? Because there's no reason he wouldn't be treated like family. Exact. Many people might not consider a child born out of wedlock a real part of the family or a real grandson. Maybe OP had some aunts and uncles that acted that way. Maybe his mom has those kinds of views. So you made sure the percentages of all inheritances are cut by a percentage of the non-familial inheritance potential. Like you factored in what your wife's family could leave the kids and made sure that cut their percentage. And you factored in your sister-in-law's career and future retirement plan as well? Did you make sure to factor in your own and your brother's career? If not, you are the idiot for punishing a child for losing a parent. Right, like how tone-deaf can someone be? Ask any kid with an investment portfolio they got at their parents' expense, and they'll tell you that they'd rather have the parent back. So acting like this kid is privileged not to have alive working parents who still pay for everything and support them is absurd. Meanwhile, OP's kids are gonna get more inheritance too. They just haven't received it yet because OP didn't die. My 29-year-old wife and I have liked each other since we were tweens. We ended up having our son Elias pretty early in life, but we managed, and I think we've done pretty well for ourselves, considering it all. My father-in-law, who is 60, has been staying with us since he and my mother-in-law divorced. She got the house, and he's been having difficulty finding a place, so my husband offered up our guest room. He's not bad company, and my son loves his granddad, so everything has been okay up until now. My son came home from school the other day looking nervous and a little upset. Elias is a really sensitive kid, and I was worried about him starting middle school because I know how cruel kids can be. I thought he was being bullied, so I sat him down and asked him about it as soon as I noticed things weren't okay. He actually told me that he likes a boy in his class, and he was worried about telling his dad or me about it. I told him that his dad and I couldn't care less. I care less about who he likes, and that we only want him to be happy. He came out to both of us later that night and asked for a rainbow flag to hang up in his room. So, I went and got him one while he was at school the next day. My father-in-law saw me hanging the flag on the back of my son's door and asked me what I was doing. I told him that Elias had asked for the flag to be put in his room, and my father-in-law started going on a tangent about how his grandson isn't like that. He said a bunch of other offensive and downright mean things and started outright insulting my child. I told him that if he felt that way, he needed to grab his things and get the heck out of my house because I won't tolerate his bigotry, especially not when it's directed towards my child. He packed a bag and went to my sister-in-law's house. She called my husband and told him I threw their dad out. So my husband came home and asked me what had happened. I told him, and he said that his father is just from a different time. While it isn't right of him to say those things about Elias, I was wrong to tell him to leave, because he's family. My thing is, our son is our family too. He's our child, and his safety and happiness should be our priority. So, what kind of parents would we be if we let someone who hates who he is live in our home? I told my husband that if his father isn't willing to grow and change, then I don't want him coming anywhere near my house. And now my husband is mad at me. I don't think I overreacted here, but maybe I did. Was I wrong to throw him out? I'm tired of, he's just from a different time being used as an excuse. LGBTQIA+ folks have existed as long as people have, and protecting your child from bigotry is way more important than coddling or housing the person being so toxic for his own grandson. I'm super disappointed in your husband, though. Father-in-law needs to learn to keep his comments to himself. Plenty of people who grew up in different times have grown and evolved. There's no excuse for him to choose not to, and your #1 priority needs to be protecting your son. My grandmother is 82, and she would never talk to someone like that, especially not to a family member. His generation has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he's a bigoted idiot. Your father-in-law may come around, but the ultimatum given was entirely reasonable, and he made his choice. Even just as a guest in your home, he owes an obligation of courtesy, if not inclusion. You are a wonderful mother. It's hard enough for kids to come out to the family, but having to deal with that discrimination in his own home. Nope. Home should be a safe haven. I'm a 24-year-old male, and I'm supposed to get nose surgery the first week of September. I've been having some issues after a broken nose for a while. The worst part has been the breathing. I can't sleep some nights because my breathing is so terrible. My girlfriend, 27, knew this and was supportive of the surgery. Since we live together, she'll be taking care of me while I'm a bit out of it. I was showing her a picture of someone after the procedure, and she immediately changed her tune. Her sister's wedding is at the end of September. She didn't realize I'd be all bruised up and needed a bandage for a bit. She then asked if I would put it off until after the wedding. I told her no because the surgeon's office is booked until at least November. Even then, I can't guarantee my work schedule will match the surgery. I have 2 weeks currently scheduled off of sick days that I'm using. She said it wouldn't look nice if I showed up to her sister's wedding looking like that. I said she was being ridiculous, and no one was going to judge me for having a life-benefiting surgery. We argued about it, and I decided I was getting the surgery. I don't care what she says. She's now acting like she won't help me out after the surgery. I think she's being ridiculous. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, obviously. She's more concerned with your appearance than your health. You're not obligated to sacrifice your health for someone else's aesthetic desires. Your girlfriend's request is unacceptable. Is she serious? Waiting because of someone else's wedding? No, get the surgery. If it bothers her, she should go to the wedding alone. A good partner should prioritize your health over a superficial flaw in appearance. But it doesn't sound like you have that kind of partner. I don't know. I think she's more concerned about her appearance. I'm sorry your girlfriend is so shallow that all she cares about is your looks at the wedding. I strongly suggest you find someone else to provide post-surgery care because she doesn't sound like someone you can rely on now that she isn't getting her way. I, 19, female, used to be my grandma's caretaker before she passed away 4 months ago. I've been volunteering in nursing homes and charity organizations for elders since I was 16, and my grandma was the only full-time parent I had growing up, so it wasn't hard for me. However, after her passing, I stopped, and I don't think I'll be doing any volunteering anytime soon. My boyfriend's mom came to stay over for a few days and brought up the topic. She said they've been very busy and can't afford to hire a caretaker. Since I work a week on and another off, I'd be able to take care of her mother. I tried to politely refuse and told her I only did it because I was very familiar with my grandma's conditions, and she was my only family, which is why I was comfortable doing it. She started saying that they're the only family I have now, and we should be supporting each other through these rough times. My boyfriend told her she had no job, so it was easier for her to do it, and that I needed to prioritize my own well-being. I needed some time to heal. She started yelling at him for disrespecting her and calling her jobless when she's that way because she stayed at home raising him all these years. So she needs time for herself. And she was talking to me, so it was none of his business. All of us went silent until she decided to leave and told me to come over on Monday. I told her I wasn't going to look after someone I'm not close to. And I'm not comfortable doing that as I'm still mourning and need time for myself. My boyfriend has been receiving texts and calls from here and there, which he refuses to tell me about, pretending it's not about me. But I also received some from my end from his mom and aunt, calling me an idiot for not considering them as family and refusing to do what I'm best at doing. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. They want me to do a difficult, thankless job for free because they don't want to do it. The idea that we're the only family I have now is manipulative nonsense. Good on my boyfriend for shutting this down. I will continue to say no to taking on this work. Let's not forget that his grandmother might not even be comfortable with this, especially compared to having her daughter care for her. I feel sorry for both myself and the grandmother, as she's being treated like an expensive, unwanted burden by her own family. However, I can be more precise. It sounds like I said I won't take care of her mother because I don't know her or her condition and because I'm grieving. I think I need to tell her I won't take care of her mother because I'm 19 years old and I've already put my life on hold to care for my grandmother, which I did so lovingly because she's my grandmother. But I don't love her mother. I am not free care, and I will live my own life moving forward. If she says she's family, I will tell her I want to go to college. And she needs to pay. No more excuses. People think they can solve the problem when you give excuses. But the real answer is no. My mom died 6 years ago. I'm a teenage female. My mom had been sick for a while, and pretty quickly after my dad told me he was dating Jessica. Jessica and my mom had a history. Jessica and my dad worked together, and it was pretty well known that Jessica liked my dad and wanted to be with him. My mom despised her. There were a couple of fights I was present for because Jessica had shown up to see my dad at home, and my mom didn't like it. My dad always told her he would make sure Jessica left us alone. But I often wondered, so when he told me he was dating Jessica after my mom passed away, I was hurt and angry. It felt like a huge betrayal. And while I will never know for sure, please don't tell me it's obvious something was going on. You can never be sure until someone owns up to it. I will always at least believe my dad wanted to be with her instead of my mom. Jessica has a daughter who is a preteen. She and my dad now have a couple of kids together as well. I was never okay with them, and I've never been an active participant in their family. I keep my head down, ignore them as much as possible, and do everything in my power to just not be included. It doesn't work well. They always try to include me. Jessica's daughter adores me and wants me to be her big sister. My dad keeps telling me to give them a chance, to try and let go of what my mom would think and jump in with him to a family who's here for us now. 18 months ago, Dad decided therapy was the last thing he could do to make things work. So, me, him, Jessica, and her daughter have been in therapy ever since. My young half-sibling has been joining us for 2 months now. I don't engage in therapy. Even when I had alone time with the therapist, I didn't want to make things work with them or find a way to heal the family. And that's what she's here for. She's made that clear. So we would sit in silence or I would refuse to contribute. Then a real push came last night. I don't know why, but it came from Jessica most of all. She kept pushing and saying how they were my family and they wanted to feel wanted by me. That's when I spoke up. I said I had been clear from day one that I didn't want it to be a part of their family, and that I was counting down the days to my 18th birthday so I could move out and cut contact with them. This was said in the presence of the 2 kids, which my dad, Jessica, and the therapist took issue with. Finally, Jessica's daughter understood what I meant, and she sobbed and begged me not to leave. She begged me to be her sister. When I didn't comfort or reassure her, I was called cruel for saying what I did in front of her and my half-sibling. I was grounded for a week, and honestly, it was one of the best weeks in a long time because nobody talked to me. But now, therapy has become about why I'm wrong and behaving in a cruel and bully-like way. This therapist isn't very good at her job. You should never be punished for what you say in therapy. I would tell them at the next session that there's no point in talking in any other sessions if you'll just get punished for participating. They shouldn't be part of the session if they didn't want the younger kids to hear what had to be said. Stay strong until you're 18 and start working on a practical plan for how to move out when the time comes. I'd be questioning their credentials, honestly. A therapist is not there to make a family look happy and complete. Instead, they should be seeking healthy, functional relationships between the parties. One individual being undermined, forced to fit in, and not allowed to express their feelings is the opposite of a healthy family dynamic. What do you want to bet it's like a church person, not a licensed therapist, a counselor, as the Baptists say. At the next session, OP should threaten to report the therapist for her absolutely abominable lack of professionalism. Then, maybe she'll refuse to see your family going forward. The way all the adults have handled this has been terrible. And out of all the women in the world, your father got with the one woman that still has your mom turning in her grave. You're right, there's no proof, but it's likely at least an emotional affair. And your father has completely disregarded your feelings and boundaries for years. You are not at fault for your siblings' feelings, nor are you responsible for them. I'm sorry you've had to experience this. Ask during the next session if they want to discuss moral and practical stances on home-wrecking, infidelity, and coming on to married men with terminally ill spouses. That will get them to leave the kids at home, and maybe even quiet them down a bit. Good luck to you in everything that you do.